Hello. Hi, I'm Michael Rush, the director of the Rose Art Museum. I will remain director of the Rose Art Museum as long as I can. I was just thinking now, I don't have any prepared statement. I do want to say, as I've said since Monday afternoon, that all of us here at the Rose are shocked and horrified by this decision. We think it is a big, big mistake that is going to have major historical ramifications for the university. I mean, I could say many things like that because I feel them and I believe they are true. But I was just thinking now, I was thinking, what can I compare this to? And I started to think that, sometimes in life there are people and there are entities that become so important that they really are more important than the entity itself in a way. Let me give you a comparison. From my perspective, the talent that somebody like Meryl Streep has is so outsized that it's bigger than her, and it has become bigger than her. She and her talent, not Meryl Streep the person, but she and her talent exists now in the world in a way that surpasses her upbringing in Chatham, New Jersey. The same with the Rose. The Rose is often referred to as a jewel in the crown of Brandeis, this little wonder that exists on the hill here at Brandeis. But actually, folks, the Rose, as essential as I feel, and I know you feel, as essential as it is to Brandeis, it's much bigger than Brandeis. And I think this is what Brandeis may not quite understand, is that the Rose exists in the world in a way that is so significant, so major, because of its history and because of the collection, not because of any one of us who happens to be here now. That's a historical accident. The great team that is running the Rose right now is an accident of history. What is not an accident of history is the cumulative history of this place. It was said, it was joked when Brandeis was being founded that it was being founded as the Jewish Harvard in a certain way. And that joke has reverberated, and we understand what it means. But there's another analogy is that if you put together all of the faculties, which is not to diminish any of the faculties, you have now an entity here at Brandeis that is so far beyond most other university museum. Our collection is beyond the Harvard of Harvard, beyond the MFA of the MFA, beyond it all. Now that's changing, of course. Harvard keeps expanding in the way that Harvard does. But at this moment in time, historically, there is no more significant university museum or museum of modern and contemporary art in this region than the Rose. It matches any modern and contemporary art museum in the country, aside from the super major ones like MoMA. Which means that you can build, from my perspective, and I have this, but you can build all your science buildings. You can build all your Romance language buildings. You can build all of your economic buildings. You will never, ever have what you have in the Rose Art Museum. And what I regret is that history will judge Brandeis in this way. History will judge all of us in this way, and that's why we have to speak. I can tell you that on this day, in this week, when this happens, and this is going to happen, guys, the Rose is over. The Rose is over. There is no future here for the way it was. Because the simple fact is that if by some miracle the museum stayed open, believe me, No one's going to give money to this institution. No one's going to give artwork to this institution. No one is going to lend work to this institution. Curators are not going to curate in this institution. The Rose, as we've known it, is over. I appreciate your attempts to change history, but history has been made. It's a very unfortunate history, but it has been made. It really is over. And I do believe that if you try to enter into the mindset of the university, what they want to accomplish, namely to sell the collection, really they did it the only way they could, which is to dissolve the museum. They're right that way. I think it's an abhorrent decision. I think it's a wrong decision. I think it's an historically horrendous decision, but it is the right one, given the goal that they want to attain. So always keep that in mind, especially your philosophy students. Your starting point is very important. The means to the end always have to be kept in mind, but you start with the end. Where do you want to get? So then you have to take the necessary means to get there. Their end is monetizing the intellectual property of the university in the collection, monetizing it and attempting to gain from it. That's the end. Really, the only way to that end is to close the museum. So they're right. In a cynical kind of way, they're right. So, as diminished as I feel Brandeis has become by this institution, what has not been diminished at all by the evidence of your presence here today is your voice, your intelligence, your goodness. Thank you for coming here. You do have power. You do have power, mostly inside yourselves, to keep speaking, keep demanding excellence in education, keep demanding that decisions be open and not held behind closed doors, decisions that affect all of us, decisions that affect the history of Brandeis. Do not make shock announcements that really affect people's lives and affect the decision, the historical mission of the university. We have to stop the secrecy, stop the manipulation, stop the small-mindedness, because the greatness of Brandeis, which is evidenced mostly in you, will be diminished by this decision. And believe me, from my experience, there fundamentally and emotionally, there are really no finer people, and I would say this, no finer people to work with than Marty Krauss and Yehuda Reinhardt. I think they've made a huge mistake now. A huge mistake. They are good people, but they got it wrong this time, and history will judge it. But you guys don't have to get it wrong. So fight on, kids, and march on, and not keep the Rose open. I think that's a silly, I think that keep the Rose open is a fool's dream. But keep the Brandeis dream alive, and keep things that can change. Keep transparency, honesty, and real smart thinking about the future of the place. Eliminating invaluable cultural property, trying to monetize them is not the way to go. It's really wrong. It's really sad. I love you. Thanks for coming today.